Or like I say, 1899 company started. Johann Puch was the guy who started it. Unfortunately old when he started the company, died in 1914. You say bicycles, motorcycles, cars, car engines. Actually held the world round speed record in 1913. And interestingly enough, for 3 years, they built an 800cc flat 4 engine, which, from what I understand, well, obviously the war got in the way there, as it did for a lot of European manufacturers. Known for mopeds later on, too. Sears as well, built a lot of mopeds for them. But later on in the 70s, they're well known for the Puch Maxi, which they built 1.8 million of. And stock production, I think Puch was pretty much done by 1899. It doesn't really exist anymore.
1999.
Sorry, 1999. It doesn't exist anymore. But they say this bike, the 250 is the one they're probably most famous for over here. Sold through Simpson Sears Roebuck in the States, even though in the States Puch had its own dealerships. One notably in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, of all things. But I'll give you some idea of how intertwined Sears was with Puch. They produced, over the years and models, 53 Puchs, 16 Piaggios, Vespa, 15 Gileras from Italy, and Cushman motor scooters out of the States for a total of about 17. This particular model, production figures just under 39,000 from 54 to 70. This second most popular, this one, about 6,700 bikes. First year of introduction, about over 9,000 actually. And that was just Sears Puch, not Sears by itself. So Sears, as you may know, private branded a lot of stuff. Actually, they private branded the Kaiser Henry J for 2 or 3 years as well, 1952 to 54. Back up to 66, anything that moved and had wheels on it was called Allstate. 66, they changed just to Sears. So that's a Sears affiliation with Puch. In a little offshoot, I can tell you that Eaton's was in on the game too, and they private branded Jawa out of Czechoslovakia. And actually down south, Sears' major competition in Montgomery Ward sold Gilera and a few other makes as well. It was that time when everybody was jumping on the bandwagon after Honda made motorcycling socially acceptable in 1961. With their ad, you might meet the nicest people on a Honda. And so everybody was getting into the act, and it was just burgeoning. And sales through the catalog was a big thing. This particular bike, we're still trying to find out exactly what town it was delivered to. It was ordered through the mail from Sears. And, Marchand comes to mind, but I'm not sure if that's the right town or not. Gary would know. Still trying to find that out. And then it went to Gary McDonald, the gentleman who built all these nice displays and everything for us in the late 70s. Then to past President Ross Metcalf owned this bike for a while, who sold it to a friend of his, who I bought it off later on. And I've enjoyed this bike for 7-8 years now, and hope to own it for quite a while yet. And you'll see it out in the rallies, you'll see it out on the road, and I'm quite happy with it. And if you see it, you want to talk some more about it, feel free to stop by.
You had mentioned about the oil, and it's one brand or one thickness of oil that they use for everything.
Back when this was new, we're talking in the mid-60s, well actually this bike came out in 53, 54, there were no specialized two-stroke oils. So really, or fork oils or anything of that matter. So the entire bike was based around 50 weight non-detergent oil. That's what you put in the forks, that's what you put in the shocks, that's what you put in the oil tank, that's what you put in the crankcase, the transmission and chain case. So if some of the oil sumped out of the oil tank over time, It was the same oil, it didn't matter. As a matter of fact, you check the oil level by opening this little screw here until the oil stopped running, then you tighten the screw up again. And that was your oil level. You didn't have to worry about it because you weren't mixing oils. It's an issue now with the thinner oils we use, that we do get sumping, and sometimes during the year I actually have to drain it, fill it back up with gear oil for 2050. And we just don't keep the tank very full because that amount of weight actually makes it sump even worse. If you lived in Europe, you can get 50-weight two-stroke oil, but not here. Or at least haven't found it here yet. It's coming.
Now, I see it on the lift at Moto 49. What did you do this winter? Because I saw also a scarred up piston.
Oh!
Like, you look like you blew it up pretty bad last year.
This piston. This piston is all scarred up and melted on the top. These engines are very, very picky on their timing requirements. They've got to be right on. That's what damages the motor. We were having trouble, I was having trouble keeping it timed. The points would be going out. Strangely enough, the point gap would be widening out, which is sort of the opposite of what you would think would happen. As a point block wears, your points close. The thing would start running badly. I'd find them at 50, 60 thousandths of an inch as opposed to the 15 they were supposed to be. I never could figure out why it was doing it. And I was hurrying to get up to Ross's one night, and it was hot, and I was pushing the bike, and it was out of time. And that's what happens with one of these motors. They're very intolerant to that. The bike has been modified, at the time I've had it here, to a 12-volt alternator and a fully electronic ignition system, which will solve the timing problem. It'll always be bang on exactly where you leave it. Plus, mention I got brighter lights now and better starting, and literally about 4 times the spark power. So already the bike, we've noticed, starts bang, and it runs nice. I can't wait to get it on the road and start driving it again.
No, I look forward to seeing it on the road. I've always liked this thing. It's got a beautiful sound to it. It just sounds different than any other two-stroke out there.
It's different. My take on this, and you probably agree with this, it sounds like a big demented outboard motor. Unmuffled outboard motor. That's pretty much what it sounds like. But because of the design of the motor, and because it scavenges so efficiently, you don't even have to be at very high RPM. Even just off idle under load, and that motor cleans up instantly and starts two-stroking.
You were also saying it gets really good gas mileage.
Yeah, so that's because of the more efficient scavenging.
Like 70, 80 miles to the gallon. Good.
70, 75, I've actually gotten 65, 70 out of it measured, which is pretty good for two-stroke motor.
It's really good. Do you think it's going to be better now with the electronic ignition?
It should be. Actually, it's going to be burning up fuel far more efficiently now. You see, that was a big selling point in Eastern Europe, where these bikes were prominently sold, and there's still like hundreds of thousands of them over there. Fuel economy was a big thing over there. And actually up into the 50s, 60s, 70s, getting consistently good fuel was a big thing over there, which is why this bike, believe it or not, the manual will tell you, even though as modern as it is, it'll run on an octane rating as low as 72. As a matter of fact, they even mentioned in the manual that there's some other fuel you can run in there. I got the idea if you got it hot enough, it'll probably burn just about anything. But that was important. And over there, fuel economy was really important. It wasn't as big of a selling point over here at the time. No one cared. Like whether it got 50, 60, 40, gas was cheap, plentiful. We all had money. One of the most commonly asked questions about this motorcycle is what makes this motor so different. And this, thanks to one of the former owners, Gary McDonald, who built this in the late 70s, we have an actual power demonstrator that shows you what's going on inside here. We're oriented the same way. The carburetor is in front of the motor. This is the front of the bike. It explains on here, the whole idea was to get far more efficient scavenging out of this two-stroke motor. It accomplishes that by having this exhaust piston open well in advance of the intake piston to get all the exhaust out before the intake comes, for your intake charge comes in. to properly scavenge a cylinder to get a good charge. Now you can see that lead happening here as this pivot goes this way. So we're opening this exhaust port well in advance of that intake port. Now we're about even up again. Now we're coming up on compression. So everything's just sealing up nice, but we're still using the very last of that intake. Kabang. Now the cycle repeats itself. The cylinder goes on the lead again. That is basically what this motor is all about. And in the year it was designed, it was far superior to any two-stroke in the market. And this is why it came to be, to get better fuel economy, a motor that ran better, that didn't foul plugs. That's the whole deal with this.